Hey, welcome back, everybody. My name is Deborah Peters, and you are watching The Deborah Peters Show, a podcast that is all about consciousness in your health, in your wealth, in your relationships, in your business, and in your self expression. And today I have an amazing guest, Tiffany Lyons, who has gone from employee to consultant, owning her own business, to now training employees how to train their boss. And this is a hot topic because since 2020, with working from home and being remote and the relationship dynamics changing between the employer and the employee, I think this is a really hot topic. And I want to say thank you for being here today, Tiffany, because I have so many clients that are struggling right now with this whole new paradigm we're in terms of that relationship dynamic. So thanks for joining me.
Amazing. Seriously, my privilege. I've loved watching your other guests and the whole theme of this show of just really meeting needs and just you have a way of pulling out what people are passionate about and just driving this beautiful discussion. So my
Cool.
privilege.
Yeah, good to have you. And it's interesting because I think it was maybe a couple of years ago, I did a couple episodes on my channel, on my YouTube channel about leadership. And one of the episodes was about the dissolving of top-down leadership. And the other episode was about servant leadership. And, I have some really strong opinions about both. And I think for me, it came out of, I was working really young. I think I was probably maybe 13 or 14 when I had my first job away from my family. Besides, I grew up on a farm. So when you're on a farm, everybody works, right?
You're born working, right?
Yeah, exactly. As soon as you can pick something up, it's like, go do this, go do that.
Yeah.
But, my first job outside of that family dynamic, and I remember just feeling so hindered and unappreciated and controlled that I wasn't able to bring my full self to the table. It had to be this 1 or 2 dimensional way of being at this job. And so I'm thinking that what you're doing here is really powerful. And maybe before we get too far down the path of this podcast, I should point out to everybody that you are in an airport.
Yes.
And between flights, yes. So if there's a little background noise, don't worry about it. This is how we are now. I mean, we're remote.
The new workforce.
Yeah, we're laptop lifestyle. We're doing it all, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, United has been very gracious with their lounge. I'll have to give them a little shout out there. So yes,
That's
from
cool.
An airport, making it work.
So I'm curious what you're seeing, because something that I'm noticing is with the top-down leadership model, and then this shift in paradigm, and also logistically, employees working from home and perhaps not even wanting to come back into the office because they've gone from these long commutes to being in an office all day, away from their families, away from their children, to another long commute, to be just like worn out. I've always felt that to be an employee makes somebody else wealthy, and costs you. So what are you doing, or how are you approaching this to level the playing field so it's more of a partnership?
Yeah. So part of it was, obviously our greatest passions generally come from our pain points, right? So it was interesting earlier you mentioned that kind of 2-dimensional restriction or constriction. One of the first things I do is really get people to hone in on what's missing.
Mm,
What would be that third dimension? And that's so much something that is from both sides of the table, whether it's top down or bottom up, when you're trying to
yeah,
engage the workforce, is if you don't want it to be top down, putting myself in shoes of employee of where I've developed this from, it's my responsibility to know what the alternate would look like.
for sure. You have to have something
And
to go to, right?
exactly. So if you don't want constriction or restriction, what am I willing to do to create something else? And so just kind of coming back to the beginning of my work history, of course, I started as an employee, started as a receptionist, actually, the most kind of, yes, friendly, but
Mm.
restrictive. You have to be at an office. You have to be face to face on the phone. But what I found was that when I lifted my head, I said, what is my environment? What do I want?
So you were creating, this is really a creative process. It's what
Mhm.
you're saying to me is that it's not what you do first, it's the image, the design, the construct in your mind
Mhm.
about how you want to experience life in general, and then
Absolutely.
chunking that down into how do you want to experience your work life, your business life, your professional life. I mean, let's face it, we spend the majority of our hours, our living hours working.
Exactly. Exactly. You're whether or not you're in an office, there is still a large chunk of your time if you're an employee that is most likely spent in exchange for whatever
Right.
the salary remuneration is, right? So then the question is, going back to what you said, this is exactly where I go, which is, okay, but you or I are still independent units. So starting from my inside out, what do I
Yes.
want my physical environment in the office? What do I want the feeling at the end of my day?
Or
Who do I
all
want
day
to work
long.
with all day long? And
Yeah.
it's interesting when I start putting that responsibility on me. That's when the
As an
when your
employee,
boss
you
flips.
mean?
As an
Okay.
employee,
Yeah.
it's interesting the little things you can do. And when I take that responsibility and start looking kind of bottom up, train my employer,
Mhm.
what you can do with that. So little things. It's like you mentioned, how do you want to feel? Well, guess what? Whether it's a cubicle or a front desk reception area, if I own that and make it mine, has any boss ever told me no?
Well, exactly, and so I just I have to jump in here because
Yeah.
it's all about energy and it's all about focus, you know? This
Hmm.
is the part that's not really discussed much, and maybe you go into it, I don't know, because I'm just getting to know you and to see how we can
Yeah.
partner and collaborate, going forward.
Hmm.
Um, I've always said when I used to do sales trainings, and I've kind of started picking up doing those again. Um, but even when I do leadership roundtables with companies, I'm saying to them um, things like I'm use different words, like the language that we use. Being
Hmm.
inspired, feeling enthusiastic. Feeling is the key. How do you want to feel instead? Because
Hmm.
then that emanates into everything that you do, from how you walk in the door at the office and the energy that, let's say you're at the front desk, or you're in a cubicle, or even if you're in the corner office, you're working from home. It's,
Yeah.
what is the energy that you are being?
Hmm.
Because who the energy you're being are you inspired? Are you an inspired individual? Are you inspiring? Are you enthusiastic about your life?
Yeah.
And then taking that into a creative process of, well, what am I really creating here? Am I creating a job, or am I creating a contribution?
Yes. Yes. And I love that you mentioned words, because kind of tying that into the energy and the contribution, I am just an employee if I
I know.
decide that I am just an employee.
Yeah.
Because it truly is like, if I accept that as a label of, well, it's someone else's company, that
Right.
actually adds to the top-down leadership. I can complain about it, but energetically, am I owning literally my space? Am
It's a
I an
level of powerlessness.
intrapreneur in my energy?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Intra, not intra.
Not intra.
Intrapreneur in my energy and contribution. And then, of course, speaking into the creative process, I mean, that's so much fun. You can go crazy there. I mean,
Absolutely.
anything from like mini vision boards to like, this is what my department could look like. This
Yeah.
is what my workspace can look like at home or in the office.
Yeah.
What's the feeling
The
that has
feeling.
me stepping
I know.
into an intrapreneurial ownership and mindset?
Yes.
And then you
Because you're
bring that
not
to the
just anything,
space.
right? You're not
No.
just. Like, there's no such thing
Mm-mm.
as just, and that's a using that kind of language is a way of negating
Mhm.
what you're bringing to the table, because really we're co-creators, you know? We're co-creating with God, we're co-creating with our teammates, we're co-creating with our, um,
Yes.
company, leaders.
Vision as
Yeah,
well. Sorry, yeah, just jumping in there, vision and leaders.
yeah.
And I think that's the other thing that gets people hung up. And what I like to walk through is you can be an employee, not
Mhm.
just, but you can be an employee. But are you willing to go so far as to give up being an employee in a place where you're not actually aligned with the vision? And that's on
Right.
me.
Oh my
That's
god,
where I
yes.
that's where I get to choose who I align myself with. And then I'm aligned with the vision, and therefore I show up in responsibility of what I get to co-create,
Mhm.
and then it's a whole different ballgame.
It's a whole different
Whole
experience for
Absolutely.
everybody.
Mhm.
See, I think that, what's really changing, I guess, for corporate America or corporations around the world is this notion that it's about power. You know, the hierarchical structure. And I'm not saying it's wrong. So let me finish that thought because it sounds like
Yeah.
I'm against it. But in the hierarchical structure, there's an implication that there's there's levels of power, and the lower you are in the structure, the less power you have,
Mm.
which is really nonsense because every person, regardless if you're the janitor or the receptionist or the CEO, you are a contributor. Pardon me, you're a contributor energetically first,
Yes.
you're a contributor emotionally, mentally, and then you're a contributor with your skills, with your gifts, with your wisdom, with your
Mhm.
training, with your education. Everything is a contribution. So I feel like there's a fundamentally flawed concept here of this hierarchy that someone is more valuable than another because of where they are on the org chart. And if
Absolutely.
we can shift that perception of a corporate structure, then I feel that we will get more higher level contribution out of everyone, regardless where they're at in the chart. And
Mhm.
then that will lead to more satisfaction, more growth, more expansion, more profitability,
100%.
and happiness.
Yes, which is kind of the end goal anyways. Yes, we all
Right.
want to be financially successful, but at the end of the day, you can have that and it doesn't matter. We all know that. That's kind of the age-old wisdom, right? But
Sure.
to really believe it and internalize it in a way that now I'm putting myself on the other side of the table as a leader,
Yes.
where I believe it so fully that I'm willing to invest in my people that way and
Exactly.
make sure that they get it. So there's that age-old saying that has been like a guiding light for me, which is, and I'm trying to remember if it's like people, or I'll just say it the way I say it to myself.
Yeah.
People respond according to according to their belief in your belief in them. I say that one more
Correct.
time. People respond according to their belief in your belief in them. So there's
Correct.
both sides again of the table here, whether you're the leader or whether you're the employee.
You know, I'm
And
glad
you
you
can
brought that up.
respond as an
Yeah,
employee as if they already believe in you.
that's
And you can
right.
respond as a leader as if you have the exact right person in the position such that you can train anything else that isn't working.
And then you'll get that back. because again, it's that energy. So I'm glad you brought up the leadership side of things, because
Mm,
that was the second point I wanted to make, is that
yeah.
there also needs to be, I think the hierarchy has value when it comes to somebody has to be in charge and be the visionary and bring the bigger picture to the table and be willing to hold people accountable, because people will perform to the level that we see them as performing. And
Hmm.
a company or a corporation is not a whole lot different than a family unit. The
Absolutely.
kids do respond well to framework, discipline, and there's a discussion around what that can look like. But
Hmm.
there's if it's just, these sort of like dysfunctional parenting styles of, we're just going to talk the kid down and
Mm,
everything, we're not going to punish them, we're not going to take anything away, they're just going through a phase. It's like, yeah, and then they become these crazy adults that have no boundaries, no
yeah.
sense of accountability, and they're destructive human beings instead of being productive and developing their greatness, and then
Mhm.
projecting that greatness into something that contributes in a positive way back to society. So I'm not saying that the hierarchical construct of a corporation has no value. It's just that we need to understand that it's no one's better than anyone, and
Yeah.
everyone has the capacity for greatness. The
Hmm.
job, I feel, of the leaders of the organization or the owners, depending on the size of your company, is to, you know, really draw that out of people. And
Absolutely.
what's, I guess, disappointing to me, at least, is that a lot of these people have zero or low levels of understanding of human behavior.
And you're speaking again to the leaders.
Yes.
You feel like
Yes.
they have low understanding.
I do. And not all, but I have to generalize to make a point.
Hmm.
And many of them, at least the old school guys and gals, um, have not done a whole lot of personal growth work,
And that's
spiritual awareness.
that's the interesting thing. In fact, it's so fascinating to me. And you'll read this in a lot of leadership books around not so much leadership, let me rephrase that, but more management books.
Hmm.
Of it's the star players, your doers that produce a lot that tend to get promoted and elevated, not actual leaders.
Right.
And it's interesting because that doesn't always cross over. Sometimes it can,
Right.
but just because you get the most results of whatever the particular task is doesn't mean you're great at building team. And that's where the hierarchy comes into play of, we use hierarchy and I feel more as like something for larger companies where you've got several layers.
Yes.
And really what I believe in is the pod model.
Right.
It's not really hierarchy, it's teams of people and each team has a lead. And then the leads come together and they might even overlap in function sometimes, which I know we don't want to hear because it sounds like it's not financially viable, but that's how you keep people engaged
Yeah.
and knowing that like what I say matters and the people I work with know me. I'm not there
Right.
processing them in the workplace, but do they get the feeling that I understand who they are as a being and that I understand what they're good at and where they're good at it? Not just, okay, you produced a lot, so why don't we promote you to lead the team when, as you so lovely brought out before, that doesn't mean you know how to work with people.
Yeah.
And
That old
that's the
model,
person you want leading. Yeah,
right? The old model of, okay, let's take our best salesperson and make them a sales manager. It's two completely
exactly.
different thinking systems. The values at the core, the drivers, are very, very different. And rarely, if ever, does it work, because you're
Mm,
taking someone that shines in a particular way, is driven in a particular way, and strives toward specific outcomes, and you're taking them out of this thriving environment and you're making them a manager, and they just like it's a round peg in a square hole.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. Exactly. And that was actually one of my huge learnings was I'm very independent. So I'm ready to ask the questions and go through and figure it out and do the thing on the side.
Yeah.
My shift and part of what brought me here was I also loved people. And that was one of the things I figured out was that it's not just doing the thing.
Right.
It's never just doing the thing. It's being in the energy that like I'm driving this forward and I'm committed to the vision, but I'm just as committed to finding the round people for the round holes.
Right.
And figuring out what makes them feel cared for.
Yes.
Because it was interesting when I then shifted, you know, as I'm kind of moving up and held different like management positions before I became independent. It was that tiny shift of like, oh, now I'm the boss. And because I had worked with them, I thought that they would also understand that I was one of them.
Oh, no.
And that didn't automatically follow, especially since I did that at a very young age. And the people I managed always were a good, you know, several decades older than me. And when I took time I brought a vision boarding exercise to one of my managers' meetings. And I was like, today, pause. We're not talking about the company. We're not talking about the vision. What's important to you?
Right.
And how does you working in the job that you're in and being involved in these projects, how is that part of your vision? And when you turn the model like that, suddenly it's not just a star performer then saying, well, I can sell and do and whatever. It's, no, look, we can co-create vision together.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happens to be the privilege of both of us to be working on our company's vision at the same time. And that can change at any moment.
It can.
And that is the freedom also that employees get to own. Because we're so scared. We hang on to that paycheck so tightly. But really, I'm part of the value.
Well, because it's, you know, I had a comment from one of our viewers who said the caste system, you know, we're talking about an age-old construct in society that, and we've just gone through it over the last 2 years, that we're supposed to blindly accept that there's some kind of more knowledgeable power outside of us that can determine what's good for us. And what that does is it really creates a separation between us and our inner being, or us and God, whatever you want to call it. I don't care what we label it. It's that there's split energy. And so when you have split energy, that you have to be afraid to bring ideas to the table or to defend an idea that you know is right or useful or productive, when even though it maybe pushes the buttons of decision makers simply because it's outside of their comfort zone, and or their egos are involved and they're wanting to be the ones that thought this up. I mean, there's so many layers as to what goes on. But the key thing I suppose we want to really drive here is the notion that to bring all of you to the table, all of you, including your fears and doubts, because usually in a corporation, and I've worked with a lot of them, there's this stigma that you're not able to express. And if you can't express all of you, you can't bring all of you. You know, I was doing this leadership project a few years ago with a nationwide company that it trickled down into the next layer of their management as well, because we need to bridge the gap. And one of the star salespeople that was doing incredibly well was getting all of these gifts from the company. It's like, okay, thank you. Here's a flat screen. Thank you. Here's a new Mercedes. Thank you. And these huge gift baskets arriving on her desk, like probably, $500-$600 gift baskets. And she said one day, she goes, I really don't need another TV or car. And I just feel so unappreciated. And I'm like, wow, let's talk about that. Let's look at that.
Yes.
And so I sat her down with her manager and walked them through a process of him understanding what she really needed from him. And it was just simply, all she wanted was him to put his arm around her shoulder and go, thank you. That's it.
So powerful. So powerful. We are always teaching people, and we forget that this translates to all types of relationships, but we are always teaching people how to be in relationship with us. Yeah. And that includes employee to boss. So train your employer, train your teams around you, or train the people that you're working with under you. Yeah. And I say that with air quotes on your team, co-creating how to be in relationship. We're so afraid to get to know each other because of that caste system you mentioned earlier. Because what if I let you see me, even though it's an professional environment? What does that then risk? On either side of the table, is that you might not like it. But once we start taking away those artificial boundaries of, well, this is the office or this is home, it's this type of relationship, then you can bring all of you. Another one of your comments, so well said, bring all of you, but truly in the sense that it's teaching people how to be in relationship, how to use your best gifts to co-create.
And that starts with the relationship that you have with yourself. And that's a journey that is never ending. Anyone that's on any sort of self-growth journey, which I hope was all of you, that journey of really getting to know yourself and accepting yourself just the way you are, even the parts of yourself you don't like, is the end all be all to everything. Because when you're willing to embark on that journey, then the rest of your life comes into the fold. So you are able to walk into that office or walk into that meeting, not weak, but open and vulnerable. Vulnerable in that you're willing to express even an unpopular idea. And you can do it in an empowered way that you are articulate and you're presenting it as something that will lead the organization forward, whether they want to look at it or not. I always tell my clients that your business will show you where it wants to grow. It will give you a very clear indication as the direction it can, with the greatest ease and accomplishment, grow into. And that will be based on the vision, and the alignment with that vision that the leaders have. And usually, I don't know, you have to tell me if you're seeing this too, because I see it all over the place. Usually the leaders have this colossal disconnect between the vision that matches who they're being with the vision where the company and the organization can go, and the other people around the table. So if we're talking about the C-suite, right?
So much, because half the time I wonder if they even have a vision, because you read these statements and really the purpose of the vision is not just to show you where you're going, but as you mentioned, you kind of brought in the being. Yeah. And so if I can't close my eyes and truly see myself as the best provider of Frito-Lay chips, and I'm not dissing on the brand, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like if there's not some connection to really making it personal and why do I want to provide chips? Like, right. And I'm sorry, I'm picking on chips, but you know what I mean? Like it could be anything.
Making me hungry.
I can't, right. If I can't, whether I'm the C-suite or the receptionist at the front desk, basically close my eyes and be like, yeah, I know what this means. Like nobody else in the room, I could close my eyes and be like, yeah, I can carry this forward. And I know what it means. I know who I get to be. And I know why we're doing it. There kind of isn't a way to connect it.
No. And it's usually driven by fear. They're coming in focused on what they need to fix. I remember I was speaking one time at a luxury market conference in the south of France. And I was on a panel with one other consultant. It was very interesting dynamic, but that's another conversation.
Oh, you'll have to tell me. It sounds
Yeah,
interesting.
it's a great story. And they were asking us questions about our approach. And he said, well, the first thing I do is I go into the organization and I identify what's not working. And then I figure out what we need to do to fix that. So then it came like my turn to answer the question. And I said, well, the first thing I do is I sit down people that are in the power to make decisions, and I ask them where they want to go. And then I build out the path, that the strategy and the mindset tools that will enable them to get there. And so then the question was, well, what about what's not working? I don't look at that.
Oh, it comes to the surface and gets laid aside very quickly. It takes care of itself.
It totally disappears.
If you are moving forward with momentum, anything that does not serve you is going to fly off the wheel.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I start with employees. Of not at the office, actually.
Oh, good.
No, I start in here. When was the last time you dreamed?
Right.
And I don't mean fell asleep and like had a nightmare. I mean, when was the last time you dreamed about what a complete life would look like for you? And then from there, you can learn the mindset. You can learn the ways of being to create the environment in your office, the vision to maybe it's finding a different company that you actually are excited about, but then being solid and confident enough to feel that it ties to something, you know why, and you're moving forward with support. No, it always starts inside with where are you going? Why are you going there? And who do you get to go with?
Yeah, what makes you tick? What do you want? Like, who do you want to become? Because we spend all of our time mostly working. So what is that morphing you into? Is it morphing you into an unhappy person that feels like they have no free time and they're a slave and there's something outside of them, aka their boss, that has more power over their life than they do? Or is it morphing you into this partner, this contributor, this creative being that has ideas and skills and talents and gifts, and then you get to really show up, all of you. And getting up in the morning, you bounce out of bed and you can't wait to get in there and create and take things forward and move the needle. And it's just a whole other, talk about a paradigm shift.
Oh, it's huge. And then the things that you want on the outside start to follow. Because that's how, so my first job was not remote. It was a very traditional 9 to 5. It was in healthcare, highly regulated.
Oh, wow.
Always in the office, always in a black and white suit. I mean, we're talking healthcare. It was not meant to be remote. But when I took back that ownership and started actually because I remember when I went on my personal development journey, I didn't even know how to want things anymore.
Yeah.
It had gotten to that place. And then I was like, well, I want to live by the beach. And that's literally where it started. That was my first desire, basically.
I love it.
And from there, I started thinking, okay, well, maybe do I have to get another job? Do I have to? And what it ended up being was I got my boss. I showed up. I did my work. It shifted inside me. And I got him to let me work 2 days a week at home.
Nice.
And now, well, it's been several years. I don't remember. I should look back at dates, but it started with 2 days a week at home. And before I knew it, I was living in Venice Beach, fully remote, doing my job 3 blocks from the beach.
Yeah, of
same
course.
Job, same teams, even all the same people, little different title, but that's how it started. That tiny tiny pinprick of desire. And that shifted mindset, the way I showed up, the way I asked for projects, the way I interacted with my team, something that shouldn't
Yeah.
have been possible.
Well, and see, that's, you said something really powerful there, because it's all about neuroscience. It's all about mindset. I use the word neuroscience because I really would like people to start to research how your mind really fires and how much creative control you have over the setup of that, and then realizing that it's all on you. Everything is an externalization. For everyone watching, life is simply an externalization of an internal picture. And
Yes.
when you connect to that with a feeling, the feeling's the key. You know, for years, I think that, I was going to say, I feel like for years, coaches and trainers have talked about a vision, but a vision without the feeling will always be a pipe dream. And that needs to be said a lot, is that it really comes down to the feeling. When you get into the feeling of whatever it is you want, to be loved, to be married, to be healthy, to be happy, to be wealthy, to speak your truth with eloquence, it all starts on the inside, and it comes down to that relationship that you have with yourself, and how you treat yourself, how you dialogue with yourself. It's all an externalization. So if there's something in your life that you don't like, change the inner picture.
Yeah. And I would go, I don't know if it sounds like a step further, but to me, it sounds like a step further to really say, I choose to believe that I create my reality.
It is a
I
choice.
think it, therefore it can or cannot be. If I decide it can't be in my head, it can't be.
Absolutely.
If I decide it can be, then going so deep. I mean, when I create a vision board, it's a whole process. And I'm just using this as an example, but if I'm creating a vision board, and oftentimes I feel like they get created, put in a closet somewhere and forgotten about. No, I go so deep into the process such that it's almost a memory already.
Because you're
when I'm
getting
done
into the
creating.
feeling of it. The reason they go in the closet and don't go anywhere is that person has only tapped one sense. Sorry, my phone is ringing.
Okay.
And that sense is a visual sensation. It's not actually engaging the feeling. So if we unpack that, our sensory acuity is where our imagination is. And so we have feelings, both tactile and intuitive. We have visual, we have auditory digital, simply meaning that, we really pay attention to specific words. And if you look at the words you use to describe something, it's not called spelling for nothing. Those words weave spells, and those spells can be spells of poverty and lack, or they can be spells of wealth and freedom and love and joy. So using one's senses is the key to having whatever tool it is, whether it's vision boarding, whether it's describing it in a journal, like creating a word picture, whatever it is. If you don't infuse authentic, and I'm not saying made up, but I mean like really stepping back, doing a meditation, going within and getting into the authentic feeling of living that experience now, not in the future, then you're going to spin your wheels in life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I want to speak into something you said earlier, sparked a thought, and then the meditation piece. I want to come back to that too. But when I am that clear as an employee, so that all of my senses, all of my dreams, my passions, my gifts, the environment around me are in alignment with whatever that vision is, then when I show up at my workplace, it simply happens to be one picture on my vision board.
Right.
It doesn't control me. It's something on the journey too.
Exactly.
And when I have that context about my team, or that boss who seems annoying, or that employee who just won't get off my back because I don't do it their way, then it's just a speed bump.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a brick wall. And then it's manageable. It's okay, well, where do I want to go with it? Because I'm responsible, because I already see where I'm going. So why would I give my power away to something just along the way when I already know what the end result's going to be?
Exactly.
Like, the context changes so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of jumping forward again to your other comment about meditation, on both sides, employee or employer, wherever you sit, I am all for those pause moments in the workday.
Yeah.
You know, we want to create this separation of, like, if you are in a physical office or you're showing up to Zoom, it's like, it's work. Like,
Yeah.
you come in and we got to jump right in. And I'm like, no, give people's brains time to shift. So I'll have quiet meditations at the beginning of my work meetings with permission.
Right.
You know, when it wasn't my company. Now, you know, hey, if you're in alignment with me, we're already there.
This is what we're doing.
Here's what we're doing. But I would go into, and I literally sat down with each one. I said, if at any time you're uncomfortable, let me know. But we get to create mental space to actually think about where we want to go. And we're not going to do that jumping from here's your spreadsheet and your hectic client problem right into here's where we want to go as a team.
Well, the productivity is so low. It looks good because people are doing the busy go. But in terms of ROI, it just isn't there without the meditative process.
Exactly.
You know, and when you get up in the morning, if you meditate, you connect, I should say when you get up in the morning and you choose to spend 15 minutes and meditate, you're connecting to you, your inner guidance, your intuition, your higher self, the greater part of you that is connected to source, to God. That then is what shows up in your action, and there's a level of guidance that takes place that wouldn't otherwise be there. However, the flip of that is when you get up in the morning and you don't meditate, you are literally pulled by everything that goes on externally in the world, and that makes you completely powerless and disconnected. So then you have to work hard because you're disconnected from source. So you have to compensate, or at least people, you know, that's the pattern, is they compensate for their disconnectedness through extra efforting. And it never produces results.
Because if you're not tapping into vision, source, God, you're looking down. And when I look down, I have to run fast because there's so much in front of me. And it's hard to decipher, is this moving me forward in my path? Or, I mean, there's billions of people and things and moments, and like, it's all colliding unless I have context up here of where I'm going and why.
That's so
like,
well
there is no other way to go but to run and trip and fall along the way, unless you know that something's guiding you around the pitfalls. I mean, it's kind of either or in my mind, because then how do you sort it? How do you really decide if you don't have some sort of compass?
You don't. I think that's where people feel unhappy, and you know, when you're disconnected, it's like unappreciated, and that drops the creativity. I mean, it just becomes this like slippery slope.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
It's debilitating, is what I would say. You know, we want to talk about human capital being our most valuable, but then we start treating our human capital like widgets and want to press them into metrics. And I'm like, then they're not our most valuable capital. That's not your most valuable resource if you're not going to treat it as unique.
Well, and I think therein lies a point of language patterns. I think even the concept of the wording human capital is so diminishing to, you know, the people at the table really being amazing contributors and partners, you know. Wow, this has been great. We're out of time, and I wish we could just keep going, because I think we're just loading people up with possibilities and morsels and tools here. I know you've
Yes.
got a free offer for folks, and then tell us your website and tell us a little bit about the free offer.
Yeah, I love this one. It's so easy. You've seen versions of it around, but I put a little different twist on it for everyone. So my website, it's a free download, and there's some instructions on there. TheTiffanyLyons.com. So we can put it in there. It's my full name. They're going back to kind of where we started, is it all starts inside. Employer, company, the vision. So I got to asking myself, when was the last time when I was really in that low point of my career that I had dreamed? I couldn't remember. When was the
Right.
last time I had looked at my life as a holistic experience? And so that's what this free offer is for, to just take a pause. And there's two parts. It's actually, people have seen it as the wheel of life. So it literally is a circle
Right.
with the 8 areas. But what I've done that's a little different is I have people do it twice, because they do it the first time with satisfaction. And
Right.
so you rate it from 0 to 10, with 10 being on the outside of 10 out of 10. So satisfied with this area of my life. But then you overlay it with the one underneath of, where's your energy investment? Where are
love
you
it.
putting the most inside out investment in your life? And if you've got an area like career where you're like, I'm at a 0, I'm unsatisfied, but energetically, I'm putting 10 out of 10 energy in there. When was the last time you collapsed those on each other and said, okay, no, something gets to shift? So that is, it's got
Cool.
some instructions, some questions, a few thought questions, but to take it from both that external of like, what are the results? And then energetically, where is me, my beingness going and flowing? And
Oh,
then
that's
putting
really
those together.
good. That's really good. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank you
It's
for
so good to
having me.
connect with you. Yeah, and I think
Wow.
I know we're gonna do some stuff together in the future. It's exciting.
Looking forward to it. It's been so great. So great talking with you.
And have a safe flight. Where are you off to?
Thank you. I am off to my new home, actually, in Scottsdale, Arizona. I just signed
Nice.
a lease last Tuesday. So,
Love it.
yeah,
Love it. Well,
wonderful.
many blessings. Good luck with that.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for being here. Thank you so
Yeah,
much, Tiffany.
my
All right,
pleasure.
guys, that's our show today. It's a wrap. Love you. Thank you for being here. Please subscribe wherever your favorite podcast platform is that you like to watch us, and give me a review. It helps build the channel. I'd really appreciate that. And remember, stay aligned, stay awake, and stay sovereign.